Oh me, oh my. Oh me, oh my. It is so expensive. It's so expensive to break the social media addiction, right? To break the doom scrolling addiction. I didn't realize it was going to be so expensive. I have just started reading so many books at this point, and these things actually cost a pretty penny. Holy crap, it's been a while since I've been reading real paper books, and these things are brutally expensive. Anyways, it's one of those interesting things. Like whenever you're doing something good for yourself, it is important to realize that it may actually have its own setbacks or whatever. Like if you decide to lose a lot of weight, guess what? You're gonna have to buy a whole new wardrobe of clothes because now you'll be too small for all those clothes you used to fit into. Again, if you do something like break the social media addiction, then you've got to figure out a different way in order to entertain yourself during the day. And oh my golly, if you start reading books, this crap is brutal. This crap is brutal. I literally, what was it, Sunday night, I bought this book. It was about Pancho Villa and the whole punitive expedition of the United States going into Mexico and the whole time period between like 1900 and I guess about 1918, 1919. That was a really, really good book. It was about the Texas Rangers, it was about Pancho Villa, it was about Wilson, it was about the Mexican presidents, all kinds of, I was just sitting there reading that thing. And I like finished it this morning. Before I was done with my first cup of coffee this morning, I'd finished the book. I was like, crap, that book cost me some money. Gotta go buy another book now. So anyways, we'll see how long this book lasts. Red Line. This is about the Syrian civil war, the unraveling of Syria and America's race to destroy the most dangerous arsenal in the world. There we go. This is my light reading. This is why it's true. You should never listen to any of my political commentary because it's not like I read anything serious. I mean, the stuff that I spout, anybody could get that out of a comic book. Anyways, I am kind of interested in this. Again, one of the disasters, again, this is family friendly, I'm not going to get snarky here or anything, but one of the disasters I feel with the whole Obama administration is when he put the red line in the sand for Assad not to use chemical weapons. And then Assad used chemical weapons. And then Obama was like, but wait, I told you not to use chemical weapons. So I'm kind of interesting to learn the rest of the story on that one. Anyways, just a side note. Don't try to put too many topical things in here, but just realize if you break the social media addiction, you're gonna have to replace it with something. I remember this with when I used to have friends that would quit smoking because smoking was much more popular when I was young, and I had friends who would quit smoking, and then they would like get fat. It's like, well, you're just used to doing something with your hand. So before I used to smoke a cigarette, now I shove a cookie in my face. Like, oh, maybe you want to go back to some smoking. That's horrible. Anyways, before I get canceled, before I deal with consequence culture here on YouTube, let's get to the question for today. So these are the question and answer videos here for Silicon Dojo. Basically, you put a question down in the comment section, and then more or less every day I come in and I answer one of your all's questions. So if you have a question, put it down into the comment area. So this is the question. How do you deal with confusion in the tech field or real life? Now this seems like a rather simple question, and on the face of it is a rather simple question, but I think it shows a deeper problem we have in the technology world, and especially with a lot of people that are trying to become technology professionals. There's this idea, right? Since technology is basically based off of math, based off of science, there's this idea that there is a right way and that there is a wrong way. If you follow the instructions, if you paint by numbers or whatever else, you will have a successful career or you will have a successful project. And if you don't, everything will be a disaster, right? The funny thing out of Silicon Valley, think differently and do the same crap everybody else is doing. And then everybody's shocked when the real world of technology is just a confusing mess where most of the time you're not really sure what the hell happened. Again, it was always funny back when I used to do tech support, and I'd be sitting there and I'd be working on a user's computer, and all of a sudden the computer would start working. And the user would be like, oh, what did you do? It's like, well, it's a little complicated to explain. It's over your head. But it seems to be fixed now, so if you have any problems, let me know. Let me sign off this work order. Because the reality is, many times I had no idea what I did. Because again, that's one of the funny things with computers especially. Like simply opening up a control panel and closing a control panel, sometimes that'll reset some settings that have gotten screwed up. So you haven't even done anything. You just opened up a control panel to see what the hell the settings are. You closed, you didn't apply, you didn't okay, you just close a control panel, and that resets something in the computer, and voila, all of a sudden your computer is working magnificently. Do you know what the hell you did? No. Do you know I got reset? No. Right? It's just one of those things that happen. Beyond that, one of the big issues we get to in the technology world is that many times we don't know what products will succeed at the end of the day. Again, back when I got my MCSE for NT 4.0, back then you had the Novell, whatever it was, a Novell system engineer, whatever, certifications, and you had the Microsoft certifications. They basically dealt with the same type of thing, essentially a security system, essentially for your network, Active Directory and whatnot. The thing was, when I went in to go to a boot camp, I had no idea what Novell was, and I barely had any idea what the hell Microsoft was. I definitely hadn't heard of NT 4.0 before, but I was simply sitting there, and they're like, we have these 2 boot camps. You can pick either one. And I picked the Microsoft one, because at least I knew what the name of the word Microsoft was, right? At the end of the day, within a couple of years, Novell started to disappear, Novell started to fail, Microsoft was taking off more and more, and so I was successful having my certification in Microsoft, but it's not like, you know, I don't want to really take too much credit for that particular decision. It wasn't like, oh yes, when I was 23 years old, I could see into the future and realize where Microsoft was going. No, I was like, that one, right? And so one of the realities you have to deal with in the technology world, technology field, and in real life is that there is going to be a hell of a lot of confusion. There's going to be a hell of a lot of things that you don't understand. There are going to be a hell of a lot of things that seem irrational and basically seem incompatible, but you have to keep moving forward. You have to keep putting your foot, one foot in front of the other, one foot in front of the other, keep pushing the ball a little bit further down the field every single day, so that at some point you can actually, get to the touchdown area or whatever the hell they call it and actually score a point. And so I think one of the big things with dealing with confusion is that you can't stop. You can pause to take a breath, but that you can't stop. You have to keep moving forward. So one of the things that I look at whenever I'm creating a business or whenever I'm doing anything in technology and I'm confused about like what the larger context of everything is. So again, like back when I had my business and I was dealing with small business and medium-sized businesses, a lot of times I would get called in and the users didn't understand what the hell their infrastructure was. I literally got called in to this one company and they said, look, at the end of the day we have a $5 million deal that needs to close. Some of the stuff has gotten screwed up. We need to get back up and running again. So you need to work your ass off to get these systems back up and running. I was like, okay, no problem. So then they take me back into the server room. I'm like, okay, so what are these servers? And they looked at me and said, I don't know. I'm like, oh, what do you mean you don't know? There were like 6 or 7 servers. I'm like, what do these servers do? I don't know. I'm like, oh, okay, fine. I'll figure it out. And then right before the woman was leaving the door, she said, oh, and by the way, we use this server room with another company in this building. So half the servers are theirs and half the servers are ours. And don't screw with their servers. And I'm like, can you tell me which servers are yours and which servers are theirs? Okay. And so basically what I did is I was looking at this whole confusing mess. And what I decided to do, and what I always do, is I start figuring out the simple things first. You start figuring out what is the default gateway. You start figuring out where are the DNS servers. You start figuring out if they're in a domain and what the server name for that domain is. You start figuring out what how their email system works. Are they using like Google Apps, or are they using their local Exchange server or something like that? And basically what I've found is when you're dealing with this this massive confusing mess, the best thing is to start with what you do understand and start building from there. So when you start with what you do understand, basically it does two things. Is you can start solving problems that are actual problems. You can start fixing things that actually need to be fixed. And as you fix those things, you start learning more and more and more about the infrastructure, to the point that once you get to the larger things you have to deal with, the servers and all of that, you have a better idea of what is going on. So like when I used to go into client sites, and I would have to clean up the sites, because many of these folks either had no computer consultant before me or really bad computer consultant before me. And again, you would go in and it would just be a mess. It would be a mess of wiring, it would be a mess of network equipment. You didn't know what the hell the servers were doing or anything like that. So one of the things that I would do is I would go in, and the first thing that I would do is I would not work on the servers. I would not work on the networking equipment. I would not work on any of the big stuff. I would go in and I would start dealing with the client computers. So since I knew every single client computer needed to get tuned up, they all had to be updated, they all had to have new antivirus installed, they all had to be, cleaned up and all that kind of stuff. What I would do is I would sit down at each computer. I knew how to do this, right? I knew what was going on here, and I would clean up each computer. And as I cleaned up each computer, again, I would understand better how the domain worked. I would understand better how the shared drives worked. I would understand better, what the shared resources on the network were, that type of thing. So as you go one computer, next computer, next computer, next computer, next computer, next computer, and then once you start feeling pretty good about that, then you can go and you can start looking at the networking equipment. Generally, networking equipment's a little bit easier. You got a number of switches, you got a router, you got some wireless access points. Then once all the client computers are working pretty well, you can start cleaning up a little at networking equipment. And then once all that's doing pretty well, then you can go to the servers, and then you have a better idea of what all of the servers are actually doing, right? So if you have an Exchange server, so think about this. If you jump into these servers, and you go in and you spend 30 hours cleaning up an Exchange server, which is something that can happen, especially back in the day. Remember, when it used to take 45 minutes for an Exchange server to reboot, you could bill your clients through the nose. Again, people thought it was ridiculous when I would talk about making hundreds of dollars per hour for doing repair work. What they didn't realize is if I actually got paid for the amount of work that I did, I was actually getting paid thousands of dollars. Because most of the time I was just sitting there watching a little progress bar go by. Watch a little progress bar go by, hit okay, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Spend another 45 minutes watching the progress bar go by. So really, I wasn't making $100 an hour. I was making $100 for pressing yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, and then watching the thing scroll. It's so bad. Back then we didn't have iPhones. We didn't have switches. We didn't have Kindles. My life would have been so much better back then if I had any of that crap. But anyways, right? You don't want to spend all of these hours fixing an Exchange server that none of your clients might actually be using, right? Because again, if you have a dumbass consultant that didn't turn off and basically unplug the Exchange server when the client migrated to Office 365 or migrated to Google Apps, you may have a running Exchange server, a server that has had a year of uptime and is just doing whatever the hell that it's doing because the MX records don't point to it anymore. And so you go, oh, okay, I'm gonna fix this Exchange server first. And then you spend all this time and energy, and the email isn't working any better, and nothing's actually working any better. Oh, because all the client computers aren't actually pointed to that Exchange server. They're pointed to something else. So I'd argue go in and you figure out the simplest things first. Again, when you're in a confusing scenario, anytime, right? The world is rarely all or nothing. The world is rarely like it's all confusion or it's all perfect. Again, in the technology world, it's rather a mix of both. You're really confused about some things and you're really certain about other things. And there's other things in the middle. You think you understand what's going on, but who the hell knows, right? And so what I say is you focus on the things that you do understand, you clear out the things that you do understand, you clear out the work that you do understand, you clean out all of that kind of stuff that you do understand, and as you do that, the things that you were initially confused about become more and more obvious. I think about this, again, back when I got my MCSE for NT 4.0. So when I I was going for my MCSE, you have to understand, I went through one of the longest electronic repair programs the Army had offers, like 898 hours down at Fort Gordon, right? 7 months I was down at Fort Gordon, 40 freaking hours a week going through electronics training. After that, I came out, I went to college, I got my bachelor's degree, plus I got all this other emergency services training and the whole 9 yards. So I went to my MCSE NT 4.0 boot camp, and I was going through the boot camp, and I was cocky. I was cocky the way somebody like that is. I was cocky the way somebody who's in their early 20s is cocky because they think they've done crap in their life. Anyways, whenever I give young 20-year-olds crap, I've been there. I understand. I remember thinking I understood how the world worked. Anyways, I was pretty cocky. So I got done with the boot camp, and I decided to go for the networking essentials test. So I think there was like 7 tests I had to take for the MCSE 4.0, and I figured I'd go for the basic networking essentials, right? Because I understood electronics. I understand radio and encryption systems and all that kind of stuff. That'll be simple. Oh, I failed that so bad. I failed that so bad. I failed networking essentials so badly, I did not retake it. I literally, after that point, decided to take the other tests that I knew I didn't understand before going back for networking essentials. But here's the funny thing, Although I had the electronics training, although I had the bachelor's degree, although I had all that stuff, I never actually worked in an enterprise environment. I had actually never really dealt with, domain controllers and default gateways and DNS and DHCP and all this kind of stuff in an enterprise environment. So everything was still very, it was an idea to me. It wasn't a physical thing. And so the curious thing was, right, so I go and I take all the other tests. I wound up getting a job as a regional support engineer, flying all over the place, doing all kinds of wacky things. And then finally I go back to take my networking essentials test. And I was worried, because I passed the other tests, but they were brutal. I'm like, oh God, okay, this is the last test. This is the last test I need in order to get my MCSE. Okay, Eli, so I sit there and I study it, and then I go in, and I crap you not, that test was so easy. It's just like, what? Why did I have a problem with this? Why I had a problem with it is when I had taken the test 8 months previously, I had never been in an enterprise environment. And now, when I was taking the test, I had been in an enterprise environment for 6 months, basically doing about 70 hours of work per week. And so all of a sudden, all that really confusing crap became a lot less confusing because I was literally dealing with it 70 hours a week, right? And so I think that's one of the big problems we have in life is so many times we ignore or we discount the tasks that we understand, the tasks that we know we can complete. It's like, I'm not going to concern myself with the tasks that I know I can complete. I want to hyper-focus on the thing that I'm confused about. Now here's the funny part, right? So you're not getting those small tasks done. You're not getting those small work orders done. You're not, tuning up any computers. You're not doing any of that basic work as you're focused on the thing that you're really confused about. And you're also not moving the ball down the field, working on the thing that you're confused about because you don't understand what the hell's going on. And so it's like the worst of all worlds. You are getting incredibly frustrated. You're not getting a damn thing accomplished. And again, even the work that you could get done is sitting there and rotting and people are getting pissed off. So I would argue is whenever you're in a confusing scenario, deal with the things that you can deal with. The number one rule in being successful in life and being successful as a technology professional is move the ball forward. If you move the ball forward, then at some point you can actually get a touchdown or whatever the hell they do in football or soccer or whatever the hell they call it. Move the ball down the field, right? So many people get caught up in the really complex things because they feel like for some reason that is more real, that is more important to figure out those things that are confusing them. The other thing to think about is that a lot of times in life, there is not a good answer. Again, one of the problems, especially for Aspies, Aspies want to know what the answer is. Eli, just tell me the answer. Eli, I got $500 here. Eli, all you have to do is you just gotta tell me the answer. And this is why people don't like me, because I'm like, there is no the answer. Most of the time, there isn't the answer. There are many answers. Again, how should you do email services in your enterprise environment? Office 365 is a solution. Exchange Server is a solution. Google Apps is a solution. Zoho Mail Service is a solution. Mordor, I don't know. One of these other email things is a solution. There's benefits to them. There's drawbacks to them. It's what you have to decide. There's no right answer. Again, like when people ask me like what programming language, especially because programming language is the big thing nowadays. Eli, what programming language should I learn? The one you find interesting. Oh, I'm so frustrated right now. I think I have to learn Node. I don't want to learn Node. Can I be honest with you? I don't want to learn Node. So I'm really, like right now, like real world, right now I'm dealing with Azure Cognitive Services. I love Azure Cognitive Services. Azure Cognitive Services are amazing. Basically, it's making AI-ish type stuff as simple to use as an API call. So anyways, right now I'm dealing with speech recognition on Azure Cognitive Services. So this is the next seminar that I want to do, and there's some really cool stuff there, right? And so I know PHP. So I know PHP. And then in order to start using APIs, I decided to learn Python. So with Raspberry Pis basically use Python. And then for a lot of these API services, Twilio, Azure, a whole bunch of different things, you need to know Python, right? So then I've learned Python so I can start to use these APIs. Unfortunately, whatever, it's not really an unfortunate thing. It's just how it is, right? So the interesting thing though is with speech services. So normally when you're making API calls, basically you provide some type of data to the serverless architecture. They process it, they do something to it, and they give you a return back, right? So it may be fast, but it's not actually real time. Again, in the technology world, real time has a real meaning. Real time isn't fast, real time is real time. Anyways, so right now I'm trying to figure out how to do this whole speech thing, and it's really cool. So you can actually, I literally have it set up so you can talk to a computer. So you can say, hey computer, turn the fan on. Hey computer, turn the fan off. Hey computer, what is the temperature in the server room? And it will actually respond. The temperature in the server room is 70 degrees. The fan is currently off. Hey computer, can you turn the fan on? Sir, yes sir, I will turn the fan on. Anyway, the issue you run into is in order to do real time, you need to use JavaScript. So JavaScript is the client side. Anyways, and they want you to use Node.js, so it's events. So it's event-driven coding. So you can actually have events trigger in order to make the code trigger, and then you can have events trigger to make the code stop. And that doesn't really work well with Python. It does work well with Node.js. So I think I'm gonna have to learn Node.js. No, hipsters know Node.js. I'm not somebody like that. I'm not one of those Node.js people. It is weird. You get like mentality. Even in the tech world, you get mentalities of types of people. I just feel like Node.js people are very hipster. I just feel like they have beard grease or whatever, beard wax. They're like the beard wax type coders with their long boards. I don't want to have beard wax, have a long board. I don't want to learn Node.js. Anyway, so then we have to learn Node.js. The whole point is here, and there's not really most of the time, any right programming language to start learning or any wrong programming language to start learning. You just have to jump in someplace and start learning. Find a reason why you think need to know a particular language and go for it. Again, I started with PHP because with web development and all that kind of stuff, doing technology for 20 some odd years now, PHP is very useful for creating dynamic websites. And I still think it's a hell of a lot better for creating dynamic websites than Python is. Anyways, need to understand and need to be able to make API calls with my code. That's where Python is the big programming language for making API calls. Now I'm sitting here and it's like, crap, I need to have real time or near real time events triggering crap happening on serverless architecture. Crap, now I need to learn Node.js. I'm not using beard grease or beard wax. I don't know what the hell it is. I'm not using beard wax. I don't care. will not be like those people. Be a rebel Node.js developer. Anyways, but the point is here is that there's no real right answer in coding languages or wrong answer. It's just what are you trying to accomplish? And so basically what you need to do is you need to kind of just make your best guess. You need to make your best guess with what you think will be valuable. Dive in, and then if it works out the way you think it will, then great, you go on to success. If it doesn't work out the way you think it will, well, then you need to figure out a different programming language, or you need to figure out a different technology to learn. One of the things to be thinking about with confusion, and one thing to think about with not necessarily knowing what to do next, is I always think about Star Trek: The Next Generation. Remember Picard? My Picard, not the millennial Picard. I will blame the millennials for this one. I do not try to blame the millennials for much. I understand millennials are just another generation, but my golly, how did you destroy Picard? You even destroyed Picard. Picard you destroyed. Anyways, so I'm talking about my Picard, my generation's Picard, not whatever the hell happened after the millennials got a hold of Picard. But I remember this one Star Trek: The Next Generation television show, and basically it was Picard and Beverly Crusher, and they crashed on this alien planet. And so Beverly Crusher is talking with Picard about her possibly taking more command authority. Since she was a doctor, I guess she wasn't like really, I don't know, commander or whatever. And so they're going along and they're discussing how she can have more command authority. And then at some point they come to a split in a ridge. So they're kind of like walking along this ridge, and then it splits. One way goes left, one way goes right. And so Beverly looks at the two and then she says, Picard, which way should we go? And so Picard looks the way Picard used to before the millennials got a hold of him. Anyways, so he looks left and he looks right. He's like, we will go right. And then so they start walking right. And then Beverly Crusher looks at him and says, you have no idea which way we should go, do you? And then Picard looks at her and says, no, but we need to keep moving forward. And so right is as good as left. And so I made the decision to go right. Again, this is one thing a lot of young folks don't seem to understand sometimes. Again, and this is why it sucks to be a leader. Because again, like in this modern world where there's hate towards the 1%, the hate towards bosses, the hates towards leaders and all that kind of stuff, is the fact of the matter is, many times, leadership doesn't know what the hell they're doing. I don't think our bosses know what the hell they're doing. You're right. You're right. Guess what, bucko? You're right. But the problem is that they can't stop. If you have a business, if you have payroll, if you have to pay vendors and you have to pay for real estate and everything else, you can't stop. You may not know what the right direction to go in is, but you know you can't stop. And so you look at the directions that you can go, and sometimes, right. Why are we going right? Because I looked at my trusty tool. I have a trusty tool that was passed down to me from my grandfather, and his grandfather himself used this tool. This is a decision-making tool that has been passed down my family for hundreds and hundreds of years. What is it? A buffalo head penny. What? Yeah, it's a little buffalo head penny. See, on one side's a buffalo, and on the other side's an Indian or something, and you flip it. And if you get buffalo, you go right. And if you get Indian head, you go left. It's a wonderful decision-making tool. And so that's one of the things. Is sometimes with confusion, you just have to pick a direction to go in. But again, I think this is one of the big problems that we see, especially with the ASPE, a lot of ASPE type folks in the technology world, and especially a lot of these folks that again, that have never been in leadership positions. Again, how many times have you heard for folks, I would never be a boss? And just think about what that really means for a second. Their bosses are a-holes. Their bosses are pieces of crap. The leadership doesn't know what the hell they're doing. And at the exact same time, they would never be a boss. One of the problems we have is so many people are not used to being decision makers. They are not used to dealing with uncertainty and having to make a call. the most important thing is not whether or not you are right or wrong. The most important thing is that you made a decision. You were able to look at the situation. You were able to articulate what you think the problems are. You are able to articulate why you think doing what you do may solve the problem. And then you send your team over the berm or whatever else, right? But a lot of folks out there, they haven't had to deal with that. Again, a lot of stuff we used to have when I was a kid has gone away. Again, things like Boy Scouts, being a, what the hell were we called? Troop leaders were the big ones. Squad leaders? Were we squads? Crikey, it's been a long time since I was in Boy Scout. Like, well, I can't remember Boy Scouts. Anyways, but that was the thing. Like when I was a kid, it was very normal for kids to have some type of leadership position. Again, Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, Civil Air Patrol, 4-H, all kinds of different weird camps and that kind of stuff out there. And kids would get rotated into leadership positions, and then they would realize they didn't know what the hell they were doing, like half the time, right? And I think when you get used to that, it becomes easier once you get into the professional world to realize you don't necessarily know what the answers are. But even in a time of uncertainty, even in a time of confusion, you can focus on what you do understand, and you can focus on what you can do something about. You then clear that work out of the way. That then, gets rid of the fog around some of the other stuff that's occurring, and you go from there. So I think that's, I don't know, a long-winded commentary and what you do with confusion is, confusion is just, it's a part of our profession. The other thing that I would say with confusion is that it's always best, I always think of it like intelligence gathering. One of the reasons that I'm always talking with people, again, if you ever notice these videos, it's kind of funny. Everybody calls me arrogant. Like the biggest insult towards me is how arrogant I am. You're so arrogant. So, incorrect. I am egotistical. So egotistical. I'm not arrogant though. I'm actually not arrogant. Egotistical is a mutter fudder. Not arrogant. But one of the things that I do, one of the reasons I say that I'm not arrogant, is I'm always constantly out there talking with people, communicating with people, trying to see the world as they see it, right? So again, let's say you're in an IT support position for your company, and you're constantly going out and you're talking to the lower level people. You're talking to, again, back when I used to do support in the enterprise world, so we had our warehouse workers, and our warehouse workers use these things called zebra scanners. They're basically they look like phasers, honestly. They're like, I don't know, these big ass barcode computer things with Wi-Fi access and all that. But one of the things is I would go out there and I would talk with the warehouse workers. The warehouse workers, many times, did not have a college education, and let's say in the Baltimore area, didn't necessarily look a whole hell of a lot like me. I would go out and I'd have a cup of coffee with the folks in the warehouse and just ask them how the zebra systems were working. Were they having any issues? Were they having any issues reading the barcodes? Were they having any issues with Wi-Fi connectivity? What could make their lives easier? What is working, what isn't working? I just sit there and have a conversation with them. I'd sit there and have a conversation with the warehouse manager. So again, warehouse manager most likely also does not have a college degree. Just sit there, shoot the crap with the warehouse manager. Talk to him about the issues that he's having with the warehouse workers. Talk to him about the issues he's having with the operations department and everything else. Go in, talk to the salespeople, talk to the executives, talk to the managers, talk to everybody and get an idea of how they see the world. How do they actually go about doing their jobs? How do they actually do their workflow? Not what you've been told by people that have never actually talked with these folks. How do they actually do their workflow? What is actually important to them? What isn't important to them? Where are they running into problems? Where are they running into problems and then they're just ignoring the problem? Oh no, the ACT database is not opening for me today. Darn! I guess I can't do my job. I guess I'm going to get paid my salary for sitting here twiddling my thumbs. What am I supposed to do? The database didn't open today. What do you mean the database only opens for half the sales team at a time? Why didn't anybody ever tell me this? Well,
So you sit there and you talk with people and you're like,
that's interesting. So we have a 10-person sales team, and then only 5 people at a time can actually get into the database. That seems like it might be a session license issue. How many session licenses did we purchase for this database system? Oh look, we bought 5. Hey, great. Again, a little bit less confusion. Only 5 people can log in. Again, and that's the thing, like if you start at, so if you have one person, you're talking to them, and you're like, okay, what's going on? You can't log into the database system. Okay, that's weird. Could you log into the database system yesterday? Yes. Could you log into it the day before? Yes. Have you been having problems with the database system? Intermittently. Every so many days, I'm not able to log in the system, right? And if you're just looking at them, oh, that's weird. That's confusing. I don't know why. Why would it work some days, not work others? But here's the thing. Then if you go and you ask the next person, the salesperson sitting right beside me, hey, so this guy's having a problem, intermittent issues with the ACT database system we use. Are you having intermittent issues with the database? Oh, yeah, well, I actually think everybody in the department's having intermittent issues. What do you mean? Yeah, I don't know what it is, but yeah, every few days, it's kind of a little bit random. One person won't be able to get in, or another person won't be able to get in. Some people won't be able to get in the morning, and they'll be able to get in the afternoon. And again, our database system was actually locally hosted, so this isn't something with internet access or something like that. And you're just sitting there, and you're like, huh. So it seems like only a certain number of people are actually able to log into the database system at any one time, and once you get above, it looks like a certain number, they fail out, which probably means we have something along the lines of a session license, which basically means only a certain number of sessions can be open to that server. We purchase these licenses, and so we're probably hitting that license limit. And then you go to the server, and then you see purchased 5 licenses, and you see 10 salespeople, and then you call up your boss and say, hey boss, I need $5,000 to buy another 5 licenses. What? Or this 5 salespeople can sit on their ass for the next 5 months. I don't know. Your choice. I don't really care. I'm just telling you what the options are, right? But I think that's one of the big things too, is you go out there and you start talking with people, and you start understanding what the world actually looks like. Again, I've been talking about that here, so I've been going to a lot of meetups. I've been talking to a lot of the technology professionals here in the Asheville area. And so initially, a lot of the tech people I was talking to in the Asheville area are local tech people. So these are people that either grew up or they spent a long time in Asheville, and they talk about how PHP is an important thing and WordPress is an important thing, the whole 9 yards. It's very curious. Again, go to another meetup. I've talked with other people. They're remote. They live in Asheville, but they work remotely for other companies, and they laugh their asses off about PHP and WordPress. Again, so something to be thinking about is, so if you're hearing in your area that WordPress or PHP is very prominent and other coding languages aren't, and if you actually go out there and you start talking with people to understand why, it's like, oh, okay, because in this particular area, there are very few development shops. They basically focus on the local clientele, or basically the regional clientele. Most of these people just simply have WordPress websites, so knowing PHP is all you need to know, and so that's why these companies are focused on PHP. Does that mean that's where you want to focus your career on? Yes, you can get a local job at $20 an hour doing PHP, but what you might realize if you're talking with other folks is, oh, these people know Node or React or whatever the hell. They're working for remote companies, and they are making far more than $20 an hour, right? But then you start to understand what is going on. Why are some people saying that PHP is valuable? Why are people laughing at PHP? Oh, these people are talking about the local companies hiring. These people who live locally are talking about the international companies hiring. Now I start to get a better idea of what is happening. So yeah, I think that's the big, the long and the short of it, the very long. Hey, you asked me. People are like, why does Eli talk so much? Because that's literally what I do. But anyways, I think that's the thing. So focus on the problems that you know you can fix. So if you focus on the problems you know you can fix, many times in fixing those problems, you will start to learn about information about the things that you're confused about. And if you go just step by step by step, very slowly you'll start to understand things, and then everything starts to become a hell of a lot less confusing for you. Again, go out and talk with people. Again, for the love of Craig, you know what's so weird? What I don't understand, and again, I'm not really getting into politics right now. I'm not on that side or that side is politics. What I don't understand right now is like everybody is talking about prejudice and everybody is talking about social justice and all this kind of thing. At the exact same time, they're all screaming about why they shouldn't listen to somebody. So again, we need to listen to these people, but at the same time, not listen to these people. Again, my argument is listen to everybody. Sit down and talk with a CEO. Have a damn cup of coffee with a CEO to understand what is going on with the company. Many times when you're sitting there and you're maintaining or you're deploying infrastructure and what you're doing, it seems completely ass backwards, there actually is a business rationale behind it. Again, it may not even be a great business rationale, but there is a business rationale behind it. Again, you go and you talk with a CEO and you're like, it's the 2020s. Why in the hell are we still deploying digital telephone systems and we're not doing voice over IP? The CEO might look at you and go, well, here's a problem. Our first CTO wasn't quite as good as we thought they were, and they got us into a 10-year contract with Avaya, so we've leased these digital telephone systems for the next decade from Avaya, and it's too expensive to get out of the contract. Do I agree with you? Do I wish that we could go over to voice over IP? I wish we could go to voice over IP, but we're already paying a metric crap ton of money to lease these digital telephone systems, and I'm not going to pay, another crap ton of money to just basically throw these things away. The telephone systems are good enough, so deploy the telephone systems. Again, you sit there, and maybe your infrastructure is built on PHP. You're like, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. Don't they know? Don't they know Node is the best? Node is the best, right? And then again, you go talk with a CEO or you go talk with a CTO and you're like, why are we using PHP? And they say, well, 5 or 6 years ago when we were building out the initial code base for our infrastructure, PHP was the language that we used at the time for any number of reasons. We've continued to build on that infrastructure, and frankly, at this point, it is not worth the money to go back and rebuild what we previously created. If you rebuild our core code base, going from PHP to Node or whatever the hell else is cool right now, it would cost $1 million and do the exact same crap that it does currently. So that's why we're still using PHP. Again, you go and you talk with folks. Why are we using Microsoft? Why are we still buying, client access licenses for $50 a pop and sometimes hundreds of dollars a pop, depending on how many services you're using? Again, you start looking because we have our technology professionals. Most people are certified in Microsoft. They understand Microsoft. Getting people up to speed on Microsoft services is relatively easy. If we go over to Linux, Linux is free. Right? The product is free. It doesn't mean the total cost of ownership is free. Paying people that are fully qualified to maintain Linux systems is more expensive than paying people that are fully qualified to support Microsoft systems. And therefore, we've gone with Microsoft because it makes better business sense. Again, you sit there and you talk with folks and you start to understand that business mentality. Pretend, just for 1 second, pretend your bosses, your managers, your directors are humans, are people. And again, the same thing is true with your warehouse workers, your sales staff, your secretaries, the whole 9 yards. You go there and you sit there and you have conversations with them. And many times, if you sit there and you have conversations with them, they will see problems before the problems have become bad enough that you're having to work 24 hours a day. Again, imagine you have a sales force, you have 5 people on a sales force. They're using a database system. It is working perfectly for them. Nobody is having any complaints. All of a sudden, they hire a 6th person and they're starting to get random connectivity issues to the database. Sometimes the database doesn't work how it's supposed to do. Now it's not big enough. They don't want to deal with the calling help desk because nobody ever wants to call help desk for some reason. They don't really want to get you involved because, oh God, what's going to happen when the geek gets involved, right? So they don't really say anything. And you go there and you just have conversations. Hey, yeah, I just want to make sure everything's going well for you. I see you got a couple more employees, Salesforce, for the sales team. Is the database system working properly? Is the email? Are you guys having any issues? Yeah, well, we weren't going to bring it up. But you've had some kind of weird issues with the database thing. I don't know. It's not big. It's not big enough for you to worry about. Yeah, we haven't called it into help desk or anything. But yeah, there is. I don't know. Just a couple of weeks ago, for some reason, we started having issues. And then you can sit there and be like, oh, okay. Did he hire anybody or anything lately? Yeah. We just brought on one more person. Oh, wow, you guys are growing. So what does that bring your sales team up to? Yeah, we're now up to 6. 6. Because again, if you ever deal with licensing, for whatever reason, there's just numbers the licensing folks like. 5. Basically, they like selling licenses in blocks of 5. So if they now have 6 employees, and you know licenses are sold generally in blocks of 5, and you know they're now just having some weird kind of connectivity issues. Again, then you can just go, that's interesting. You grab your cup of coffee, you go back, you log into the database system. You're I'm just kind of curious, how many licenses do we have for this thing? Oh, look, we got 5. Ding, ding, ding. Hey, boss. Yeah. Do you realize I brought a couple more people on the sales team? Yeah, they're up to 6 people now. Yeah, they're doing good. Here's the thing. They only have 5 licenses. So can we get a purchase order to get 5 more licenses before they really start having problems? Yeah, great. Cool. Right? Conversations. And then the final thing, again, whenever you're dealing with confusions, is use the trusty old the decision-making tool that has been passed down from father to son for generations infinitum since the Roman Empire. The most important troubleshooting tool that has ever been created. The coin. If you're not really sure whether to go left, you're not really sure to go right, flip the coin. Going right. Why? Because the coin says so. Because again, a lot of times you cannot stand still. So there you go. Those are my thoughts on dealing with confusion. You are going to deal with confusion in the technology world. You're going to deal with confusion in real life. The main thing is keep moving forward. If you're very confused and you're very uncertain about what you're doing, move forward slowly and methodically. But you still have to keep moving forward. If you stop moving every time you get confused, you're done. You're just not going to get anywhere. Because believe me, you're going to be confused a lot. So anyways, that is my very long answer to a very short question. So if you have any questions that you would like me to answer in a long form format, put the questions down in the comment section down below. If you would like to support Silicon Dojo, free to the end user, hopefully at some point, hands-on technology education. It's currently free to the end user technology education. You folks are getting education and all that. Anyways, if you want to support what I'm doing, donorbox.org/ETCG. That would be ever so lovely if you want to throw some money down there. If you want a one-on-one meeting with me, meetings that I do basically to talk about your career, talk about building up your business, education, all of that kind of stuff. If you go to silicondojo.com, on the right-hand side, there is a link, and you can sign up for a one-on-one meeting. And if you want to come to our educational seminars, generally done every Thursday. We're not actually having them for a couple of Thursdays just because of a couple of things. But anyways, the next seminar that I'm going to do is going to be on Azure speech services that I actually think is really cool. Again, imagine being able to add speech services to your app, like, again, just basically an API call. That's a hell of a thing. Anyways, that'll be like the next seminar that we do. I'm also going to do a seminar on introduction to hacking and introduction to cybersecurity, because those are popular things. If you want to come to those meetups, go to, again, silicondojo.com. On the right-hand side, there's a link for the meetup. Sign up for the meetup and then come. Again, that is only available to folks that are here in Asheville. And yeah, with that, I guess I will call it a video. As always, I enjoy doing this video, and I do hope to see you here at Silicon Dojo in Asheville.